morning, everybody, and welcome back to part 2 of the Canadian Lynx in Safari Mack Explores North America. I'm your guide and host, Safari Mack, helping you make connections to the wild. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're back. We're still in Canada. It's still pretty beauty, eh? And today we're just going to continue up and finish up our time with the Canadian Lynx on this special hunt. So if you're ready, let's go. Let's talk about the wild things. Now, unfortunately, I wasn't really able to dig up too much about with the Canadian Lynx, but here we get to see. I can tell you a couple of special things, not just here, but later on in today's episode. Let's start off with just how they appear. First of all, as you can see, they have a short tail, long ears, and a bit of tuft hair on those ears. They have a short, stubby body, short legs. And they have this grayish as well as tannish coloration of fur. Now, all these certain features seem to have allowed this creature to effectively hunt the Canadian wilderness, the Canadian boreal forests. But now, believe it or not, this cat actually gets mixed with the bobcat. So here, I thought I would help you all show you all exactly what separates the two. So first, just take a look for yourselves. So as you can see, the Canadian Lynx's tail is a lot shorter and more stubby, and the Canadian Lynx's tail has a bit of that black tip at their tail. Now, the bobcat, as you can see, there's a little bit of that black tip, but there's also more white at the end of their tail. And for another thing, you see that the bobcat has all these spots all over and does not have that distinct, tuft hairs on the tip of their ears. Now, why the Canadian Lynx has all these, this is, if you recall from part 1, this is what seems to help them hunt effectively in Canada's boreal forests. So being able to hear a mouse from 250 feet away, excellent eyesight, and of course these gigantic paws that look like giant snowshoes. This is what allows them to creep up on their prey as closely and as quietly as possible. But now we're going to see another special kind of wild thing about the Canadian Lynx. Now, believe it or not, at one point, people thought that this bluish looking Canadian Lynx was a separate subspecies. It really isn't. Similar to that of like a tiger that might be born white all over, with the one out of very few thousand births, or that black leopard or jaguar. The Canadian Lynx has a kind of genetic mutation that allows them to appear kind of a bluish color, but they can also appear in a kind of reddish color, as well as but mostly they're born as their characteristic gray coloration. Now today, the Canadian Lynx does of course face problems. The primary cause is loss of habitat. So, if you recall from part 1 last week, I told you how back after being exterminated from Colorado in the 1970s, they were successfully reintroduced to in 1999 in Colorado. If you recall, I said how despite being reintroduced, the cats really did not want to be out in the open space, as their more effective hunting techniques were better suited in a forest. So any reduction of their habitat really is big and bad news, especially for them where their prey is living as well. So the prey is nocturnal, they're nocturnal, they live in the boreal forest, they live in the boreal forests. But now there's another form of problems that the Canadian Lynx is going through today. And this is going to be a little confusing, so try and stay with me on this one. And if not, it's okay, I'll explain it again. Now, this is caused by us, but not all the way by us. Here's what I mean. They're actually facing competition with another predator, the coyote, otherwise known to you and me as Canis latrans. Now, I know what you're thinking. I know it sounds like the typical dog chasing a cat. It's not really quite like that. Let me explain. So, in the past, coyotes were usually, as you can see here, this dark orange color shows exactly where they used to live at one point. But after wolves were being wiped out from a good portion of North America, with some surviving populations and majority in Canada as well as some spots in North America today, especially thanks to conservation efforts, coyotes have begun to expand their range and are taking over certain spots where they originally didn't before. Now, why do I say that this isn't entirely caused by us? Well, you see, that's just the thing. When one element is gone, another element kind of moves in to kind of take its place. So here, you might think, well, why doesn't anybody do something to help the Canadian lynx and with coyotes? The thing is, it's not always possible to do something. This is just an example of how some creatures seem to be more equipped to survive better than others. This is just nature. This is just what they do. This is just what nature does. That's how it usually is. That's what it's meant to do. It's not about finding the perfect creature. It's just about seeing how well you can adapt and survive in changing times. Today we're gonna leave that part behind, and we're gonna talk about some of the conservation measures that have been taken. Believe it or not, conservation for this cat actually took place a heck of a lot earlier than you may expect. This is the Hudson Bay Company, originally established in 1670. Since the 1730s, believe it or not, the Canadian lynx was being conserved, or the people working with the Hudson Company, they were actually trying to keep track of how many lynxes there were in a certain area at the time for helping to trap them and collect their furs. Now, so that really does help them. It's what kept them from fighting near extinction. Now, today they are still being trapped for furs, but this is on a more legal term. So, but they still, of course, have much great protection throughout their range. But another form of how we need to help these cats today, we need to help them by replanting trees and helping to re-expand their habitats. Now, thankfully, there is a bit of good news. Canadian lynxes are. It's like I may have sounded like I said that they can't adapt quick enough, but that's not true. Studies have shown that they can survive well in a forest that has been left to regenerate for at least 15 years. So if an area has been left alone for a while, eventually they will come back and they will resume their role as top predator of the snowshoe hare, which it seems to be like that intertwining yin and yang symbolization. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed our hunt with this special cat, but I'd like to announce that now, be sure to join me next week as we go up to the Arctic tundra to go on an epic migration or a marathon race with the caribou. So until next week, though, hit that like and subscribe button so that you can stay tuned to my episodes. Check out my Facebook page for special conservation measures, as well as what you can do at home. And if you have questions about animals, or if there's an animal that you would like me to discuss in the future, send me an email, which you'll find the link to down in the description below. But until next week, this is Safari Mack. I'll see you all out there. Have a good one.